G'day there guys, and welcome back to another episode of r/Am I the Arsehole? Am I the arsehole for telling my daughter she cannot marry a racist? For some background, my wife and I worked and lived in a somewhat larger city where my daughter was born, got a job opportunity in one of her employer's field offices, and it was too good to pass up. We moved to the boonies when my daughter, Amy, was a preteen, and we have been there ever since. The people are nice, but we were quickly labelled as city folk, and so we never really integrated very well. Amy came back the summer between her freshman and sophomore year. She got a summer job, which is where she met her fiancé Dan. We have had him over to the house countless times since then, and he's polite, respectful, and he seems to truly love my daughter. He is a local, and his family have been locals for generations. We rarely meet up with his parents, but they also seemed nice when we did. They dated long distance all through her college years. This past summer, they got engaged. His parents decided to throw an engagement last weekend at their house. We had never been there, and I was excited to see the home where he grew up and meet his extended family. The party was fine. We did our best to fit in, but like I mentioned, we were from the city, and they poked a little bit of fun. His dad gave a speech, and while it wasn't overtly racist, he mentioned how he was happy his son found a nice white girl and looking forward to white grandbabies. As the night progressed, they started to share a bit of family history so that we would know the proud lineage our family would now be a part of. Without going into too much detail, they are descended from the members of a hate group. We decided to be polite and not say anything, but we didn't stay much longer. I let this stew for a few days until Amy returned home. She tells me that she was not aware of this family history, but it doesn't change her mind. I don't want her marrying into this family, and I told her so. She says Dan doesn't wholly believe what his parents do, but I'm not convinced. You can't be raised to believe you are of superior race and not have it become internalized to some degree. She assures me that they have a lifetime for her to point out all the ways his parents are wrong, but I'm worried that if they never leave his hometown, there will be too much pushback from his family. I told her that I'm going to be firm on this, that I don't want her marrying into that family. She called me an arsehole and has been ignoring me ever since. I feel horrible, but this isn't what I had hoped for her. So is she right? Am I being an arsehole? Now in the comments, you would be the arsehole. Your heart is in the right place, and you can voice your opinions against it, but at the end of the day, it'll be her choice. I would advise talking to Dan himself, in private if possible though. I'm a black person myself, and you'd be surprised how often the least racist kids come from the worst parents. And edit, I just want to add that you'd be totally within your rights to explain that to her. You do not want any of those traditions passed on to any potential grandkids. I shudder to think of how those people react to a grandchild dating a person of color. How will daughter and son-in-law handle that? What if they can't have kids and adopt a POC? If the kids have a plan for that kind of stuff, maybe they'll be okay. These are all legitimate potential problems. It all comes down to how the daughter and Dan handle these situations. Ultimately, they will decide what values they want to embrace and pass on, and I'm sure the grandparents will make anything progressive a nightmare. But it would be unfair to blame Dan for his parents' failures as a human being, and you can't expect society to become more tolerant by denying people the chance to break away from the shitty opinions of the generation before them. OP says, "Thank you for your insight. I do plan on speaking with him this evening to see if we can clear things up. Your mention of potential grandchildren inheriting their ideology really fuels my fire to ensure that I go about handling this the right way. I know they don't exist yet, but I am determined to be in their lives so that I can offer them an alternate view on the world should they need it. Your daughter should be part of this conversation, or at the very least agree to you attempting to have it." OP says, "Good point. I will speak to her once she is finished with work." Suggestion for an opener: "I'm sorry I tried to dictate how you live your life. I am concerned, and I would like to talk about it with you if that's okay." Not the arsehole. Ultimately, your daughter is an adult and can and will do whatever she wants, even if it means marrying a racist. But you are absolutely within your right to abhor racism and to make that stance clear. In fact, this is the kind of reaction to racism that you and everyone should have. especially when it still runs so deeply and rampantly like in Dan's family. You were right that racism has been ingrained into Dan, and from what your daughter said, he doesn't wholly believe what his parents do, and that she has a lifetime to convince Dan that racism is wrong. I think she knows that too. It will be very difficult, but you may have to come to terms with the fact that your daughter is accepting of this disgusting ideology, evidenced by the fact that she wants to marry into it, and adapt your relationship with her to that fact, whatever that looks like. At the same time, while you can't limit her, you certainly are not the asshole should you opt to distance yourself and have no part in paying for or attending the wedding. It comes down to how bothersome the racism is to you, and how you want to reflect that in your actions going forward, which may look like a tough decision between your relationship with your daughter and your commitment to your morals and principles. And now on to the update. Some asked that I update when I could. A lot has happened the past few weeks, so I thought I would share. Not long after I posted, Amy came to me to apologize. I was surprised because based on the response I was getting, I was preparing to apologize to her. She said she lashed out because she was trying to reconcile her relationship as she knew it with the new information about who he was. I asked her if she really had no idea, and she said that, looking back, there were warning signs, but nothing that would lead her to believe that he was overtly racist. I guess being long distance and liking him so much allowed her to remain mostly ignorant. She wanted to know what she should do. I told her that I was going to talk to Dan and try to get a beat on who he is, apart from his parents. She seemed to think that that was a good idea. A lot of people said that I was being unfair labeling him a racist before, but now that we have spoken, I can tell you for certain that he is a racist. A lot of you were trying to figure out what Amy meant by him not being wholly racist, and I think I can answer that now. He told me that he doesn't harbor any hatred for anyone, but he believes the white race will go extinct eventually, and he is proud of who he is and of his race and doesn't want that to happen. Which I guess also explains his father's comments about white grandbabies. I told him that his heritage is nothing to be proud of, and that his beliefs will have no place in our family or in my household. He said that Amy seemed to understand him, and that I might not have a choice of whether or not his beliefs will be a part of my family. I said that he was right. If Amy wants to move forward with the wedding, then there is nothing I can do to stop her. He sneered and told me that he supposed we had nothing more to discuss and that that was the end of it. I told Amy what me and him discussed, and she decided to call it all off. She broke up with him, and he has not taken too kindly to it. He has been back to the house a lot, so we decided to get her an apartment back in the city. Her work is going to start phasing back into the office anyway, so the timing works out. His parents called us and came to speak with us a few times. At first, they were just trying to figure out what was going on, but it quickly turned into them berating us. I got some Reddit flack for not standing up to them initially, so this time I made sure that they knew where I stood. Now in the comments, well, this is horrifying, but also a huge relief. Amy found out now. She sought out counsel from someone she trusted, and Dan showed his ass and made her decision really easy. Good for you for keeping the lines of communication open in your family so that Amy knew she could come to you for support and advice. OP, if they decide to become more confrontational, I suggest getting a Ring doorbell and camera just in case things escalate. If they are small-minded country folk, they may try to push you around through their connections, so you better be prepared for more harassment and find a good advocate, lawyer, that can help you. OP says, we are having cameras installed this week, so we are a bit ahead of you there. It hasn't been too bad so far, just Dan crying on our front lawn and his parents going on about how we are in the wrong. I'm hoping that this is as far as it goes, but I am prepared in case it gets worse. I hate to say it like this, but it sounds like the parents of Dan are more upset that they lost breeding stock to push their BS. Any other women Danny Boy has ever dated never tolerated their BS, and they are getting desperate to continue the line. That's the vibe I'm getting from them. Amy is really fair-haired, and I think they saw her as more white because she's blonde. For what it's worth, it sounds like you did the right thing in not calling him out at the first visit. That would have likely caused more tension between you and your daughter, making talking about the issue more difficult. This way you were able to help her see for herself so she could make her own decision. Glad you called them out on it after though. Our next post is titled, "Am I the asshole for telling my nurse if I wanted her opinion, I would have asked for it?" So I, 26 female, am starting my uphill battle of trying to get my tubes tied. My PCP is on board with it, but let me know that I'd have to go through gynecology since the procedure is done by them. She put in my referral today, and one of the nurses called to set up my appointment. The nurse asked me if I was trying to set up an appointment to change out my IUD, and asked if I was having problems. I told her I was actually trying to set up an appointment to talk about getting my tubes tied. I could hear her overt disapproval over the phone. She started telling me that they don't like doing these procedures on people my age. I might meet a man and want to give him a baby, I don't want to end up old and with no one to take care of me, etc. She told me she believes that I'd be a wonderful mother, which is not true at all, and that I'm just scared of actually being pregnant and not of being a mother. I got so annoyed that I blurted out, "I only need your help setting up an appointment. If I wanted your opinion on my body and future, I would ask for it." My male friend was in the room and told me I had no reason to be so rude to the nurse, and that she was just trying to help me think of this objectively. I honestly don't think I was an asshole, but I'm sure the nurse does, and my friend thinks that I was an asshole. So, am I the asshole? Now in the comments, not the asshole. They need to put personal opinions aside and just do their job. Be ready for a battle though. It took me going through 8 different doctors before I finally found one to sterilize me. OP says, "I purposely waited until I was 25 plus because most doctors won't even think about it until then." Hospital worker here, not a nurse but patient facing, one of the first things we got told is not to pass judgment on people's choices. We are allowed to think whatever we want, but we can't tell them. This nurse is out of line for offering her opinion uninvited. Not the asshole. And it also sounds like your friend doesn't seem to see anything wrong with the asshole out-of-line nurse giving you unsolicited, unethical medical advice and telling you what she thinks you should do according to her values, not yours. OP replies to that, his defense is that he would be really upset to find out a woman he really likes has her tubes tied, even though he doesn't want kids. Like, what if we both change our minds? Another one he said that really shocked me was, "You'll never have the chance to have an accident. That could change your whole view on being a parent, and you might want to keep the pregnancy." I told him that's exactly the effing point. I don't want an accident. Then he doesn't have to be with a woman that has her tubes tied. That is so gross. What if a man objects? Oh no, call the church. A man told me he doesn't approve of my autonomy over my body. Whatever shall I do? OP says, he's frickin' crazy. This whole thing had nothing to do with him, but it's ruined our friendship in 12 hours. Not the asshole. She was being incredibly unprofessional and inappropriate. You were just pointing that out so she would stop trying to tell you how to live your life and just help you set up your appointment. And now back to the post. Edit. I woke up and RIP my inbox. Thank you for all the suggestions and support. I have a lot of reading and research to do. I didn't know I had so many options in the way of sterilization. I do plan on reporting this nurse. Someone not as strong-willed as me might get dissuaded or bullied out of it. I don't like that crap. Another thing to mention, the nurses set appointments and schedule everything else. The gyne, technically it's a woman's health clinic office, is specifically for patients with PTSD, cancer, high risk, severe womanly issues, and gynecology trauma. The idea is only to speak to medical professionals so you have consistent access to people who supposedly know what they are talking about. The nurses go on monthly rotation, so some are on the floor and others will be at reception. My ex-friend blew up our friendship in a nuclear way. Basically, he was a closet neckbeard. My appointment is set up for later this month, and if anything of interest happens, I'll update since some people asked. And now on to the update for, am I the asshole for telling my nurse if I wanted her opinion I would have asked for it? So, to no one's surprise, the answer was no. My gynecologist, Dr. O, spoke with me for just under an hour, and her main talking points were: 1. She doesn't like to do the procedure younger than 30. Towards the end of us talking, she told me that she's willing to do it when I turn 28. 2. She had a patient last month asking for her sterilization to be reversed. The woman was a divorcee at the time of sterilization and said she never wanted kids. 3 years later, she meets the love of her life and wants a kid by him. Tragic story, but what does that have to do with me? Of course, the good old, what if you meet a man and want to have kids with him? Or, what if you and your partner decide to have kids? And 3, her last reason was that it's a serious procedure and she doesn't like to hand them out like candy. I told her that I've been asking about this since I was 20, and was told, albeit in a completely different state, that 25 was the golden age for consideration. Dr. O was pretty shocked to hear that I've wanted this for so long, and that's why she agreed to do it at 28 instead of 30. She kept basically saying that I might want kids, so I realized a very important thing. My terminology for this endeavor needs to change. I told Dr. O to forget the kids part of this, completely take children out of the picture. I do not want to get, or be able to get, pregnant. I spent a solid 5 to 8 minutes about why I don't want that, and how the concept gives me anxiety. I even started to panic in the office talking about realistically getting pregnant. It still fell on deaf ears. So, I opted to get a second opinion with a male gynecologist. Enter Dr. B. Dr. B and I had a very long and interesting appointment. He was extremely helpful and encouraged me to schedule another appointment with Dr. O. He gave me talking points and tons of helpful advice on getting this to happen. He is optimistic that if I am annoying enough and follow his advice and talking points, Dr. O will do the procedure. If I don't have surgery in the works by January, he told me he will personally help me find a provider outside the VA. Dr. B said he would be more than willing to do the procedure for me, but because he no longer has access to the surgery area, that he can't help. He is on his way out so he can retire, so he's not doing surgeries anymore, and doesn't do anything that can't be done in the clinic. This is everything I have to report. I'm going to continue to push to get this done. Thank you for those that came back to check up on how this went. Now in the comments, my wife at 35 finally got her tubes removed after arguing with her OB since the age of 16, and ultimately firing her OB and getting a good doctor who had a thorough discussion with her about all the risks and options, and then scheduled the procedure. Well, at 35, most OBs won't put up a fight. They usually don't want to do this particular surgery on someone below 30. Partially, that probably depends on where you live. Most of the women I know here in the Midwest were pressured by their OB to wait until at least 40. My wife's former OB simply refused to even consider it this year, which is why my wife fired her and found a different one. Midwest here, my aunt was 45, had 2 teenagers, and in constant pain because her parts decided to sprout tumors left and right. There was a chance that it was cancer, and the doctor was still trying to convince her that she could want more children. Fortunately, my aunt is a stubborn spitfire and got her procedure. No cancer, no more pain. I love when people say to me, "Oh, but what if you want more kids in the future?" My reply is, "Hi, I'm Miss Adoptee. How are you?" Why does no one ever consider adoption? Do people really want their legacy to come from their reproductive organs that badly? If I ever decide to have kids, which is extremely unlikely, I would 100% adopt. This adoptee approves of your plan. And OP says, even when I was convinced I wanted a kid, it was always through adoption. There are millions of unwanted kids that need a loving home. I hope you had a happily ever after adoption. And they replied that, it's been a mixed bag as a kid, but my present and my future currently are pointing towards one. I'm keeping it that way. Thank you. And that's where I'm going to end the episode for today, guys. I really do hope you enjoyed it. As always, smack that like button if you haven't already. Go on, do it. I bet you won't. With that said, I hope you guys have a bloody good time. I will see you in the next episode, and I hope your day is lovely. Bye.